Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Triple Threat Comics YouTube channel. I'm your host, Ian Miller. Tonight, we welcome back a very good friend of mine. He is the writer and creator of Cyber Ronin and the writer and creator of Fast Girls. Please welcome Daniel Garcia.
Thank you, Ian. Appreciate you always inviting me onto your show and having me back again. So thank you.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. So, Daniel, how are you?
Doing good. Busy. I think you and I were just talking about this backstage, so to speak, but
Yeah.
busy with my normal, not normal because nothing about my job is normal, but my normal 9 to 5 and then comics. So been busy, man.
Yeah.
A lot of traveling, but doing good. Yeah, thank you.
Of course. Folks, I'm very sorry about the picture quality of my camera. I don't know what's going on, but if you just hear my voice, that's fine. That's fine. But this is great, Daniel. This is great.
Thank you. Yeah. We just wrapped up. We just wrapped up the Fast Girls Kickstarter. We made goal thanks to one of the backers actually increased his goal, his pledge, which was great. So we kept it simple. We really weren't trying to overcomplicate the tiers. So we kept it simple at your standard digital, a couple cover swaps, and I think we made some cards to go along with the tiers. So it really wasn't anything overly complicated. And to be honest, we probably could have pushed the social media aspect probably a little more than what we did. But, I know that on other shows that I've been on, when I've been on your show and other times, I should say, we've talked about the balance between comics and personal life. And, if I didn't have a 50-hour plus week job that was so demanding, and so did Bill, who's part of Grok Comics, we probably could have spent a lot more time on social media pushing it. So it was I relied heavily on Facebook ads, which are relatively inexpensive. So to anybody that's looking to push their crowdfunder, Facebook does offer an ad program, an ad or a post boost, I should say, where you can boost and post your advertisement. So,
well, it's impressive, and yeah, I do recognize. Again, you and Bill are having, you got your own, day jobs, so it is hard to, promote on social media, which is why I made it a point to make sure that you guys get promoted every other way, that I can think of.
Thank you. No, dude, listen, you've been fantastic. Every single Kickstarter that we've done, you've always been great. So I appreciate you always pushing our stuff on your show. So
yeah, well, I want to make sure you guys get the attention that you deserve, and also the project gets funded because hey, I'm a fan, and the stuff that you guys do are fantastic. Okay, I can see that Daniel has a problem with his camera now.
Yeah, no, I just turned it off for a moment. I wanted to see I wanted to make sure the connection was good, so I just turned it off for a second.
Okay,
no, listen,
sure.
Ian, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, we're good, man. Thanks. I was just saying that all of you and I, and Trevor from Crossfire Comics and Bill from Grok Comics. I could speak for us. I know that all of us put a lot of work into what we're doing. So a lot of passion goes into it. So, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, so to speak, goes into what we do. So anytime you hear someone say, hey, I really like your stuff, or I enjoy what you're creating, it's always it's good to hear that, because you're I want to hear that people like and enjoy what we're doing. So we just wrapped up Atomic Vamp and Laser Wolf, and I'm getting I'm literally in the process of getting it printed now. Just sent out all the digital stuff to our backers, and as I'm going through the Kickstarter, I'm like, holy mackerel! I can't believe that we offered all these things on the tiers, like cover swaps, cards, prints. I'm like, oh, that's right, I forgot that we did all this. So the post-production piece of it is a little overwhelming at times. So, but thankfully, I got people like you and everyone I just mentioned here a moment ago. That's so helpful when it comes to that talent piece of it is always really helpful when we have someone that can help out or help each other out. So,
Well, again, this is a community, and especially in the indie community, we need to obviously, be each other's corners. Be each other's, well, pardon the phrase, cheerleaders, but that's pretty
yeah,
much it.
yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. Um, and it's not only helpful from a production piece, but it's also helpful when you can pick up the phone. Like you and I will text sometimes,
Yeah.
and we'll just kind of say, hey, what do you know, what's going on? How are you? What's happening? I know you and I have been working on something for a while. And now we're finally getting to it because where, I wanted to get this last Kickstarter under my belt and out. So now we can get to what you and I had been talking about over the weekend. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
a lot goes into this stuff. And I know that every time I'm on your show, I tell your audience that, and I don't mean to beat a dead horse. It's just a lot goes into this. And as you know,
It does go. Yeah, it does go. A lot does go into the making these comics, and it's not easy because again, you have to figure out. Okay, if you're just the artist and the writer, you're pretty much doing everything already. But if you got another artist, another inker, another letter and colors, yeah, that all adds up because they're working hard, and sometimes that comes out of your own pocket, because again, these are working creators. And you have to obviously pay
yeah,
them their dues because, again, this is a living.
yeah. Yeah, no, and you're talking about people who like ourselves who, we work for a living and then we do comics also.
Yeah.
That's not to mention the other stuff that we deal with behind the scenes, like the political aspect of things. So like I'll give you an example. I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to drag
Okay.
anybody's name through the mud, but there was an artist that I was working with. This is about a month ago now, where I
Mhm.
paid him for some pages, or it was some pinups that I paid him
Yeah.
for our upcoming stuff, and I paid him, and I waited literally like weeks for any response at all, and finally I got a response from this person, and he says, "Oh, I've been ill," and I said, "That's not a problem. Like,
Yeah.
what do you
Yeah.
want to do? Like, do you want to continue doing what we're doing, or do you want to refund me?" And he's like, "Well, if you want to refund, you need to go back to the person that you gave the PayPal money to pay me." And I'm like, "Great." So I emailed that person, and their response to me was anything but polite. And I'm not an impolite person. I'm generally very cordial and polite and respectful and
Yeah.
professional.
Yeah.
And this guy wrote me back and was just nasty. And I was on vacation with my girlfriend, and I'm in the middle of vacation having a hissy fit because of the way this guy responded to me, and she's like trying to calm me down, and I was losing my mind. I'm like, I just gave you X amount of money to give to somebody. I'm just asking you to be fair and pay me back. And then they
Yeah.
were less than polite. So, it's these things that go on behind the scenes that no one sees other than the production, other than all the other stuff that goes on. It's like having to deal with some people that a lot of times are not very nice. And,
Yeah.
I've found that in the artist world or the comic world, there are a lot of, not to sound elementary or juvenile, but there are a lot of not nice people who are either just have a bad disposition or have been burned a lot, or they feel that maybe um, their crap don't stink, however you want to put it.
Yeah.
And I find that behavior just repulsive. So that's just my opinion.
I agree with you again, because yeah, you're supposed to be professionals. You're supposed to leave your egos out the door when you're actually working on a project, especially when you try to establish a working relationship with someone who hired you to do a job. You have to take your ego out of the equation. You have to keep it out the door. But unfortunately, there are times where that doesn't happen.
Right. Yeah. No. It's unfortunate. That sometimes people's behavior. Sometimes art creators, artists. This happened after you and I think our last show that we had. There was someone else that I was, and again, I'm not going to mention names, but there was someone that I had been paying to pay a second party, and he claims to be an agent, and I'm using air quotes here. He claims to be an agent for artists. Mm-hmm. So I reached out to him and I said, hey, can you ask your artist if he can do a pinup for me? And he goes, yeah, sure. And he quoted me a price. And I'm like, hey, that's weird. The price, it's not a problem. I'm willing to pay it, but the price he quoted me was, and it was a really stupid number. It was like 10, $20 more than what he normally quoted me. And I said, it's like $20 more than what you normally quote. He's like, yeah, this artist has decided to charge a little more. And I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, that's not the case. You just want a bigger cut, which is, fine. I'm all for that because everyone's got to eat, right? So I understand. I'm willing to pay that. It's a good artist. And then I go, okay, no, that's fine, no problem. I go, can you have him draw in the background? Ian, this isn't BS. Like this really happened. Can you ask that artist to draw bullet holes, no background, just bullet holes in the background? No, let me rephrase that. No, nothing in the background other than the character in the front, and then some bullet holes in the back. The bullet holes can be in anything. It's going to be a blank cover anyway. It's just I thought it would look cool. And he goes, yeah, hang on a minute. And he gets back to me and he goes, yeah, that'll be another $100. Or
oh my God,
dude, I swear to you, I don't remember what the dollar amount was. I may be exaggerating a little bit, but it was like he wants to charge another $50 for that. And I was like, excuse me?
No.
And dude, I kept on making this up. So I said, no, okay, you know what, man, I'm good. Thank you. I appreciate that. And then he goes, well, is there anybody else that you want to use? And he blurted out another name. And I go, oh no, I know that guy. I've used him in the past to do pinups for me. He's a great guy. I said, why would I go through? He goes, oh, I go, what do you quote me with that guy? And the price he quoted me was something exuberant compared to what that artist would charge me personally. So I said to him, I go, dude, why would I go through you to ask this guy to do a piece for me when I just go to him directly? And he goes, I'm going to slander your name everywhere over Facebook. Man, I lost my freaking mind. If this guy would have been in front of me, it would have been on. It would have been, I was so pissed. Yeah. And he got on Facebook and then he blocked me. Oh yeah, you wrote me.
I did write there. Yeah.
Yeah, you did. And you were like, hey, this guy's talking shit. And I explained to you the story. And then he blocked me. So I emailed him. And I'm like, dude, what is your deal? And then he was like saying a bunch of things, a keyboard tough guy, right? So he was tough. He's tough on keyboard, right? On his email, but he wouldn't say he wouldn't have said any of that in person, but all on email. So then I called him some choice names because I wanted to elicit a response from him. And then he posted that on Facebook. And I was laughing. I was cracking up. I was like, what a baby. And then everyone that was responding to his post was saying, dude, you are in the wrong. Like, you're not even an agent. Like, why are you doing that? Like, you're not in the right at all in this. And then he took the post down. So it was so stupid. And again, this goes back to what we were saying earlier. I'm only bringing it up because, like, people need to know that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, a lot of personalities, a lot of attitudes, a lot of, so when we find people like you and I, or like the Trevors of the world or the Bills of the world, you got to hang on to those people because this industry, it really is dog eat dog. It really is. So
that is true. And going back to the whole ego thing, I am a freelancer artist, folks. I always have been, almost for 10 years now. You know, I take my ego out when a client hires me to do a job because, again, they hired me to do a job, and I always show them work in progress to say, is this what you're liking? Is this what you're looking for? Because I always want that input. You would need that relationship if you're a freelancer. But if you put your ego in it, you never get hired. You'd never get hired.
Yeah. It's just it's unpleasant to work with people and literally, Ian, like if I email an artist, I don't care how good they are. If I reach out to an artist, email, instant message, whatever you want to say, if the person puts out their email or their instant message, as a recommended way of getting a hold of them, I'll do that. I will not go. I won't go over or overstep my boundaries to try to find the person's email if it's not on there. I contact them however I can in a professional manner. And if their response to me is, and listen, we all have things going on in our lives. Okay, all of us do. Every single one of us do. And I don't know what's going on in people's lives, neither do you. So I'm not being judgmental. But if I'm going to give you hundreds of dollars to do a piece for me, be polite, be cordial.
Yeah.
You don't have to. I'll ask you how you're doing. You'll ask me how I'm doing. You'll ask me about my family. I'll ask you about yours. Right? I think we've built that relationship. It's okay to do that. I'm not going to ask that of somebody that I don't know at all. Yeah. I'll always be polite, respectful. But if your response back to me is at least not cordial or polite, I'll delete and block you. I don't want anything to do with you. Like, I mean, that's just my personality where I'm not going to give someone money if I feel like I can't even have that relationship with them. So, and maybe it's right or maybe it's wrong. I don't know how, business is business. I know, but it's my money. So, and I'm giving it to someone. So
it's your money. It's also your time. But,
yes.
Yeah, because they're wasting your time. No.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, no, and time to me is more, time to me I think you feel the same about this, but like our time is more valuable than a lot of things, and what I mean by time is that, someone once said to me, they're like, you have 24 hours in a day, you spend a big chunk of that resting and sleeping, and then the rest of it, either you're working or you're doing something, a hobby or something like, comics or working professionally or whatever it is. And then the rest of that time that you have left, what are you doing with that time? So are you taking care of yourself? Are you, how are you treating people? How are you behaving? And I don't want to leave a legacy of that guy sucked every time I talked to him, or that guy was just horrible. And a lot of these people that I just mentioned to you now that I was emailing back and forth, or that I had that issue with that you mentioned to me, the overarching, the consensus is that guy is just an asshole. Pardon my French. And I don't want to be known as that guy in the industry. I don't. I want to be known as, oh yeah, I know that guy. He's pretty cool. We've done some stuff together, but I don't want to be known as, that guy's impossible to work with. So that's me.
No, because I could truthfully say to this, folks, Daniel's not impossible to work with. He's very, understanding. He does listen. He actually points out fresher ideas to me. When I'm pitching him stuff, he's like, yeah. So that's a true collaboration, but also, that's the thing. You have to take your ego out of the equation when you're doing a business deal. Okay,
agreed.
Because
yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, ego has there's no rule. There's, you could be, I don't know if cocky is the right word. Maybe proud. You could be proud of what you're doing. Arrogant is never good. Cocky is never good. Cocky, if you could back it up, if you're a friendly type of cocky, I guess. But
Yeah,
I think there's no room for arrogance in this game, especially if we're working with each other, or if we're collaborating with one another, or we're trying to build a network. Like, you know, I work in the law enforcement investigation business, right? So
yeah,
I work with a lot of police officers and a lot of investigators that are civilian investigators, and there's a lot of arrogance in law enforcement, especially when you get into like the higher ranks.
yeah,
But however, um, those people don't not that they don't last, but they're not as successful as people that are easier to work with,
yeah,
or that can set their ego aside. Those people that are, you don't got to be friendly, man. You just got to be professional and just be courteous and put your ego outside, and just not bring it with you to work. Those people are easier to work with and they're more successful.
yeah. It's true. Yeah, and that's a difficult job you have, especially with dealing with stuff like that. So again, you gotta keep your ego outside the door,
Yeah.
especially when you're dealing with situations like that. You have to be professional. But that's true for any profession if you think about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's any profession. I think that's, like, it's okay to have like someone said to me, can I give you some feedback? And I said, yeah, that's, no, that wasn't how he asked it. He said, no, yeah, he did say, he goes, can I give you some feedback? And I said, I didn't respond right away because I was thinking about my response. And he
Yeah.
goes, oh, are you, when he saw that I didn't respond right away, he goes, oh, are you not good with feedback? And then my response to him
Oh,
then was, no, I am. I'm better with feedback from people that maybe are professionals in the field, right?
yeah,
I'm better with that kind of feedback than someone that has. I'm not going to give feedback to a mechanic that works on cars and
yeah,
say, hey, you're doing that wrong. Or I don't know the first thing about engines, right? I know the basics as a guy, as a man, I know the basics, but I'm not going to stand over you as you're taking spark plugs out and tell you, hey, I think you can do that better, right?
yeah,
And that may sound arrogant, and I'm not being arrogant. I'm saying that if I'm gonna take your feedback, I'd rather feedback from somebody. Like if you were to tell me, hey Daniel, and you've done this in the past when I've written something and you're like, hey, I would change these things. I'm gonna absolutely take your feedback, and I'm gonna take it as, all right, well, Ian knows what he's doing, so let me look and see what he's asking or saying, and consider make some modifications to my story because you're a writer and you've written comics, right? So,
yeah, yeah,
um, so I think being humble and being, as you mentioned, I'll say it again, taking your ego out of the equation and being humble, in my opinion, goes a long way. But you've got to still have that drive. So, like,
yeah,
we just finished our Kickstarter. It only made $2,000, and I know you can make the argument, oh, only made, and yes, only made, because a lot goes into the production of stuff. So it's expensive. These books are expensive. So I'm not paying myself back, which is fine because I have the drive and I have the passion to want to put more books out this year. So I'm driven, you're driven, and we like to see our stuff be successful. So
yeah.
I'm not going to say any cost, but we'll we'll suffer a little bit for our stuff. So just to make sure that it's getting published and we're seeing the fruits of our labor.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of your Kickstarter for a second on Fast Goals, yeah, folks, you have to understand. Sometimes with Kickstarters, it can be a very slow process. There might be days where it might not get much money in there, but almost at the last minute, you get a couple more backers, and you get the thing fully funded. It may be just where you're the exact amount that you've already put in there. Sometimes it might be over it, but again, it's a slow process. And okay, I'll give you a perfect example. It's like watching the stock market. You know,
Yeah,
you've invested your money and your time in that on the stocks that you make a little money. But by the time you see the stock market, the stock going down the next day, you're like, oh god, I'm losing money. Then it goes up and it goes down. It goes up and goes down. It's like that. Sometimes you
Yeah,
get
no,
backers, involved, and sometimes you don't.
it absolutely is. And the market, in my opinion, the crowdfunding market for comics it's saturated, Ian, and I know you know this. I have my own viewpoints on superheroes and on whether or not they belong. Not that whether or not they belong, whether potentially wasting their time and money and effort on a market that's saturated, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Um, I went to the comic store the other day and I picked up a couple books. None of them were Marvel or DC. If I pick up any Marvel stuff, or DC stuff, it's older, from the 80s and the 70s and the 90s.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that superhero books don't work on crowdfunding. I think that people that have um, an audience that they've made for themselves, and I know a lot of creators that have made an audience for themselves because they crank out books fast, and they're consistent. I think consistency is a big thing in this industry.
Yeah.
But if you look on Kickstarter now, and there's no way to compare it, but if there was a way to compare, how many superhero, when I say superhero, I mean comic the genre of comic books. How
Yeah.
many comic books are a crowdfunding project now compared to the early 2000s? There's no comparison.
Oh yeah.
Everyone and their mom is doing comic books now. So, in my opinion, I think making $2,000, $3,000 it's a win.
Yeah.
Anything over like $7,000, you're doing great, and then anything over like 20,000, then
Oh my god.
that's amazing. Yeah, that's incredible in this day and age. So
Yeah.
you got to be creative. You got to be consistent. Social media is a big thing, and you and I were just talking about this again. Like, I'm not on social media every day like I used to be, because
Mhm.
I just I'm not going to say I'm too busy. I have to put more time into it, and that's
Yeah.
one of the things that I promised myself to do better this year, is to be consistently on Facebook and on Instagram and on other social media platforms a lot more than what I have been in the past. So I got to make a plan for that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a goal that you have to set for yourself because, yeah, again, you have to promote yourself constantly on social media because just to get the notice, because people will just come and comment on your posts saying, "Wow, this is great. Where can I look at you? Where's your the latest stuff? Or are you selling that book right now? Where's your Kickstarter? So it's
Yeah.
stuff like that."
Yeah. No, it's big. It's a big piece of it is being consistent on and letting everyone know that, yeah, again, consistency. That's just, I think consistency is the key for so many things. It isn't always the end all, the be all, but being consistent in anything you do, whether it's good or bad, right? Really will show you results. So if you try to be healthy and you're eating healthy consistently, and you're exercising consistently, you'll see more results than just like, trying to eat a salad once a week, or going for a run once a week. When you start really being consistent at anything, usually the results are better. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, I've tried to put out different books with different genres to see like what's done, what I thought would do best. And one of the things I think I made, one of the mistakes I think I've made has been not sticking to one title. So like everyone's like, oh, Cyber Ronin. You should do more of that. And I'm like, yeah, I probably should do like issue 2, 3, 4, right? And just put
Yeah.
it out there. But I just think my brain doesn't work that way. Like I want to see different things being published to see what may work better for me as a creator. So is that right or wrong? I don't know. That's just the way I'm looking at it. But Atomic Vamp did get a lot of Atomic Vamp did pretty good actually, and so did Laser Wolf. It almost did $4,000 on Kickstarter. So, and then so did Cyber Ronin did pretty good also.
Yeah.
So I'm contemplating doing that later on during the year and doing Atomic Vamp #2. But first, as you and I have talked about, I do want to do what you and I have been discussing first. So Atomic Vamp goes out here in the next couple of weeks, shipped physical copies. Then I got to get another project done. I'm waiting for the artist to get it completed. And then Fast Girls should go out. And in between all that, we'll be ready to do that other project you and I were talking about. So it should be a pretty busy year.
Yeah, and this is actually very exciting, folks, what we're working on because, again, we've been wanting to collaborate for a long time now, and I'm very glad that we're able to do that. And it's exciting for me because, I will be doing 2 Kickstarters, my own, of course, of Codename Hunter, and our project. So that's going to be very fun.
Yeah, no, it'll be good. It'll be good being able to collaborate with you finally. I know we've been going back and forth on the script. So I think it'll be good to finally get out what you and I have been talking about. I think it'll be great. And my plan is to get out the stuff I need to get out, which is real close to being done. But then eventually you and I are going to collaborate on something, hopefully that can help you in the future with your stuff. There goes my cat. Don't mind my cat. And it's going to be, I've decided that I'm going to do Shark Force, Savage Heroes Armed for Righteous Combat. And you can check it out on my Facebook page. You can just check out like the front cover to issue #1. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. And then we're going to put your character into that story as well. And then you're going to do a spinoff, I think, right? Is what we said?
Yeah, because I think, there's enough in there to, to give audiences like, okay, what's this character? So yeah, definitely spin off, and then that can lead to its own series at some point. But yeah, I definitely want to introduce in your universe.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be fun to do something, together, because I think you're a great writer. So you've got a lot of stuff under your belt, and I think people love your stuff too. So. And then continue working with Bill from Grok, and I'm going to stick to one thing, Ian. I think, as I mentioned to you before, I'm going to do Atomic Vamp #2 to get that out there. We did 20 pages of the first issue, and the idea is that, and I know you and I kind of talked about this, but my plan for the rest of the year is to do multiple issues of something to be more consistent. I'm taking my own advice, and then to continue collaborating with people such as yourself and the Grok comic guys and the Trevor Metz of the world from Crossfire Comics, and to continue collaborating with you guys and just and making it work. You push me, man, and I appreciate that, because you're really good at, you'll message me during like the month or during the week, and you're like, hey man, we're like, I'm gonna finish sending you the script here in just a moment, but like you'll message me and go, dude, where is the script? And I'm like, I'll get it to you, man, I promise. And then I just pulled a nasty day, out in the street doing crazy stuff, and I come home and all I want to do is either work out or watch TV, and you're like, dude, I need that stuff like today, like please. And I'm like, all right, bro, okay. Like, we gotta push each other. We gotta push each other, man. I was just talking to Bill. Right now he's messaging me as you and I are talking, and him and I will have conversations, and I'll say, hey man, how you doing? And he'll tell me how he's doing, and I'm like, dude, just hang in there. I know he's got a pretty stressful job too. So, we all inspire one another. So it's nice to have that.
Well, we have to, and if I do push you, again, that's just pure excitement, of the project in question. But also, just to just shake things up a little. But just tell me when I need to back off. Just tell me.
No, no, not at all, man. No, I enjoy. I rather people. I like surrounding myself with people who are number one smarter than me. So I think it's important. When my kids were growing up, I always told them the same thing. You get to pick your friends and who you hang out with, but for
Yeah,
me personally speaking, I think it's important that you're spending time with people who are as driven, or if not as more driven than you are, is number one. As or more intelligent, usually more intelligent. I like spending time with people like that.
yeah,
Um, uh, People who have just drive and passion. That are passionate about like what circle you're in and what you're doing. So whether it's, I think you and I have discussed this before, but like I love weight training, right? And I love
yeah,
boxing. I love martial arts. I love all that stuff. Finding the time for it now that I'm a little older is a little more difficult because I'm also doing comics.
yeah,
But when I'm able to do everything at once, I like to surround myself with people that I know I can train with, that are better than me, that inspire me, that it sucks to hang out with people that suck your energy, number one, or that
yeah,
are just like, oh, I've known so many. Ian, you probably know people like this too, that are talented. They could draw, they could write, they're really good at all the above, but they don't want to do it. So I'll be your friend. It's cool, but like, don't come at me and tell me you want to do comics because, you know, page number 4, number 5, when you tell me, oh, I just don't feel like doing it anymore, then
uh,
so yeah, for me, like those are really important things: is being driven, being intelligent, being passionate about what you're doing, and being smart with your time and spending
yeah,
who you're spending that time with.
yeah. You have to, and I've been fortunate enough. I know you've been fortunate enough to surround yourself with people, that you respect, that you like, that you want to work with, because it makes the process so much easier. You know, because just how daunting it can be, to work with somebody, that you think they're talented, but they're like, oh God, I can't even with this person. I just can't. I
Yeah,
just can't.
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
you have to be like this today, really.
yeah, right, right. You're like, oh man, and you just it's such a draining like moment, to even talk to someone that's just like miserable, like it's just awful. I'd rather not be in a relationship with someone like that, even if it's professional,
Yeah.
so
No, no, I
um
totally get it. I totally get it.
yeah, my listen, these are just my opinions on things. People may be thinking, oh wow, well, who cares about any of that? but those are just my
I think they
philosophies
care.
on.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no,
I
those
think
are
they
my
care. I
those
think
are
they
my
care.
philosophies on business, man. Yeah, those are just my philosophies. I think, like the older we get, we start seeing so many of the people that we knew either passing away, or our heroes start to pass away, and like the things that we once loved, we start seeing them slowly fading into history, or like our heroes start to fade into history, and um our friends, our family, it's a part of life. It's not unfortunate or fortunate. It's just part of life. So, when you can appreciate what you have and the talent you have and what you're able to do with what you have, right? And you put a book out and you're holding that book in your hand, and you know you made that. It's your book. Whether someone likes it or not, it's you made it. It's yours. How many people can say they've done that? So
Yeah.
just don't waste your time on people that just suck, or that drain your energy. Just I'm not trying to sound like a Hallmark postcard, but the truth is, man, that we don't have a lot of time on this planet. So, the time that we do have, I think you just take advantage of the talents you've been given, the people that have been put in front of you when they're good people, and don't
Yeah.
waste your time with time wasters and people that just suck that energy out of you. It's just not
Absolutely.
worth it.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to read a quote now. This is from Jean-Luc Picard from Next Generation. Live now. Make now always the most precious time. Now will never come again. And that's
Yeah,
true.
that's
That's true.
that's that's my girl's favorite Star Trek captain is Jean-Luc Picard. Yeah, yeah. That's Did you know that they're gonna there's a Star Trek convention in August in Florida, as a matter of fact, and we're gonna go to that, which is pretty cool. I'm excited about that.
All
That's gonna be pretty
right.
neat. Yeah, yeah.
Fantastic.
Those are, you know what, you just brought up a really good point. I was at a Dave and Buster's actually with my team, and I took them out to eat lunch because we were closed out a big case, and we were going out to. I was just celebrating the day with them, having some drinks and hanging
Yeah.
out. And there was a Star Trek. It was like a machine, it was a game of some sort, and it spit out cards, right? Like trading cards. It was really cool, right? So I won a bunch of cards, and I brought some home to my girl because she's a big Star Trek fan, like I am. Yeah. Anyway, I put them inside my wallet, and talk about a moment of like a surreal moment for me. For it was a lesson for me at that time. I'll explain to you here what happened. But the card spits out. I put it into my wallet. I'm excited about having the card. It was an old Dr. Spock card. It was like not the card wasn't old, but it was an old image of his from when he was on the show. And I'm a big Leonard Nimoy fan. I loved him in Star Trek. I thought he was just amazing. He was one of my favorite characters. So I'm sitting there, and this gentleman comes up to me, and he goes, I open up my wallet to get my money out, and there's the card. And he goes, "Oh, are you a Star Trek fan?" And I said, "I sure am." And he goes, "You know something about that show?" He goes, "That show." He goes, "Which is your favorite?" And I said, "Well, I'm a fan of the original, right? And I liked Deep Space Nine, big fan of Deep Space Nine." And then from there, I kind of ranked them from there. I liked Strange New Worlds. I thought it was pretty good. So we got into a discussion about Star Trek. And he goes, Gene Roddenberry was something special, wasn't he? And I'm like, absolutely. That guy didn't see race, creed, color, ethnicity. He didn't see any of that. He just saw his creation. He saw what he saw as a perfect world, a perfect galaxy, right? A perfect universe in his mind. And we kind of exchanged some thoughts on the show. And then before he walked off, he goes, "You know, that show really transcends time. And it really broke a lot of boundaries for its time because of the cast of the show itself." And he's like, "It just goes to show you that, you know, when we treat each other right and we're all good to each other, a lot more can get accomplished." And I was like, I'm getting like a life lesson from this dude. I don't even know. You know, he's giving me a life lesson right there and then. And I was like, dude, you couldn't be more right. I said, you're absolutely right. And then we had some more positive words for each other. And then he walked off.
That's a cool story.
Yeah, he was a really great guy. He was just a Star Trek fan, you know, like, and he saw the value of, you know, just being good to each other, man, and just treating each other right and just not being an asshole. You know, he saw the value in
exactly.
You know, and
I have a story similar to that, but this is a story this is actually Patrick Stewart's story, and he was at a convention, you know, signing things. So this Las Vegas police officer comes up, you know, gets an autograph, shakes his hand, and says this to Patrick Stewart: "There are days where my job is very hard. There are very long days. There are days where I see things on the job where it shakes my humanity to its core. I see horrible things. On those days, when I go home, I put on a tape of Star Trek, allow myself to relax, and believe that there's going to be a positive future just out there waiting for us."
Yeah. That's inspirational. That's huge to hear. One of the sergeants that works for the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office, he's a big Star Trek fan, and you wouldn't know it because this guy is like, he's all business. You know, he's all business. He's a great guy. He's one of the sergeants in the Economic Crime Bureau, and he's a big Star Trek fan. So whenever we're in the car together doing something, you better believe that's the topic of conversation for like several hours. So it's really cool
Well,
to meet
yeah,
people. It's neat. It's neat to meet people like that who really. One of my favorite episodes was, and I'm probably going to screw this up, and my girlfriend's here in front of me, so she'll keep me honest. one of my favorite episodes, and it was Next Generation,
yeah,
and she's like I told you, she's a huge Star Trek fan. So we're
yeah.
watching Next Gen, and we're switching between Next Gen and a couple other ones, and it was the episode where Picard, they're on leave, and he goes to visit his family in, I want to say it was Earth.
Yeah.
And it was in France. It was in France. And he went to visit his brother in France. And I don't know if you've seen this one, Ian. I could find it for you, send you the episode.
So no, I've seen it.
You've seen it. Okay, all right. You've seen it.
Yeah.
Okay. And he goes to visit his brother, and they end up beating the holy hell out of one another. And then at the end, after the scuffle, they have like this real deep conversation about like how their lives took different turns. And at the end of the episode, Jean-Luc goes back to his ship, and there's some pretty heartfelt. It's a pretty heartfelt moment between him and his family, and I don't know. It just left an impression on me. On like, again, and I think that's when the writing was probably at its best, because I remember reading somewhere that the writing got not so great in some of the episodes. I can't remember which episodes they were, but and then it picked up again. The writing got good again on Next Gen.
I think it was when towards the end of season 3, when we started to see the best of both worlds, 2 parts. Then we got to season 4. The writing got even better. It was really the first 2 seasons that were just kind of lagging because, again, they're trying to, make it different from the original series.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they did a fantastic job of that, and you'll probably run circles around me in Star Trek lore, but I just appreciate the show for what it is, and for and I'm not saying that every episode had a life lesson, but just the writing of it, I thought really did for its time. Just the show in general, when Gene Roddenberry created the show, I think he really, and I'm not saying anything people don't see already, but I just for its time, I thought it was inspirational. He's one of my inspirations for writing. I've said this to you in the past. I've had several writers that I like, and I'm not saying I can emulate or ever be as good as, but I like the stories behind, especially when someone has to, fight through adversity. That's really inspirational for me. When someone fights through some kind of adversity to get, what their goal is, right? I think it's just it's a big moment when I think that's why sports for me are big. And I'm not every sport. Like, I'm not a huge football guy, or I'm not a big basketball or baseball guy. There's teams that I like that I'll watch, and they're inspiring to me. But for me, boxing is huge. I think that there's so many boxers that have overcome. Like, if you look at Vinny Pazienza, who they used to call the Tasmanian Devil, who was an Italian fighter. I think he's a New York guy, so he's out of your neck of the woods. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's a New York guy, Italian fighter. Talk about adversity, and there's a movie about him. Did you see that movie by any chance?
I did, yeah.
What'd you think of that? Like, isn't that inspirational? Like, that's a true story. Like, that really happened to that guy.
It is inspirational. It is. I always like the idea of the underdogs, because they're coming from a lot, and they're pursuing the dream and all that, and they do overcome it. It's like with Cinderella Man, for example. This guy, Brad, had everything, to start with in the 20s. Then the Great Depression comes in. and suddenly he's poverty and he's getting older and he can't box at a certain point. But then all of a sudden, he's like, I still got it left in me, and all of a sudden, he's inspiring, almost a nation, really, if you think about it, because
Yeah.
this is such a comeback story. And I was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. And I'm like, there are a million stories
That's
like this.
how do you not get inspired by that? How does that
Yeah,
inspire you? You know, the Christopher Reeve story. There was something on, I want to say it was Hulu or HBO Max. It may have been HBO Max.
yeah,
Bro, how do you not watch that and get like just jacked up by watching those kinds of stories? Like how did that not happen? You know, like how did
yeah,
that happen? If you
yeah.
watch like huh? Go ahead, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. That man never gave up, even after this horrible accident happened to him.
Oh
He didn't
man.
give up, and
Yeah.
he just found the inner strength to become a real life Superman. And
Yeah. Yeah,
start
man.
this
Yeah, that's
foundation.
it. That's it. Yeah. If you're watching, and I couldn't watch it, like I'll have to go back and watch the whole thing because I watched the beginning of it and I was
Yeah,
crying the whole entire time. It's
yeah.
like,
So was
and I'm
I.
not afraid to
I was
admit it.
tearing up. I was tearing up,
Yeah, I'm not afraid to admit it. I'll
especially.
tell you all day. I can care
Yeah,
less. But me and my girl tried to watch it, and we were just like, oh, I can't watch this. I can't.
yeah,
I need some alcohol before I start watching this. This is so sad. But like,
yeah,
and look, and I don't know if that transcends into comics, right? Or whatever you want to enter, hobby or sport or whatever you want into that. But when there's multiple days when I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like
yeah, yeah.
what am I killing myself for? Like, what am I told my girl a couple of days ago, we were talking about this. I think it was like last week. I go to her. This is a true story. It was early in the morning. She went to work. I called her and I'm like, I'm done. I'm done with comics. And she, okay, like, you sure? I hate to hear that. And I'm like, no, I'm done. I'm finished. I can't. I got just,
Uh,
there's just too much going on in my life. I can't. I'm gonna satisfy whatever I need to satisfy. Take care of what I need, what I owe, right? Because I owe it. I got to finish it up, and I'm done because
yeah,
I'll put something out on social media. Not that anybody gives a shit, right? If you put out there with comics, your social media friends will probably be like, "Oh, I'm shocked," and then
this is
after
why.
that,
This is why.
yeah, bro. Thank you
This
for
is
posting
why.
that. Thank you, bro.
Oh man, this is
Thank you,
why.
bro. Thank you. Thank you for being inspirational.
Of course, of course. No, no,
but,
no. But I
but
totally get it.
yeah,
Everyone
no,
has that. Everyone has that.
everyone has that moment. Yeah, but that's when you have to dig deep, and then and again, not to sound like a Hallmark card, but when you're, and then I spent my day doing work, right, my regular work, and then something happened during the day where I'm inspired by a lot of things, and I'm sure you probably are the same as me, where like we'll watch stuff and then we're inspired, and I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, look how cool that is, right? And then I'm like, no, okay, hang on, I gotta get back to work, right? I gotta get back to work. And then you're just like, but man, that's really cool. That would be a really cool story. And then you're just drawn right back into it again. And I'm like,
yeah,
all right, man, I gotta pick myself up. I'm just having a shitty day. Let me get back into this again. And then a day or two goes by and you're in it again because you just can't, you can't give up. You can't stop. You gotta find it inside you to keep going, so
yeah, yeah. I'm the same way. I've had ups and downs where like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? You know. But on other days, I'm like, why would I ever leave? I love what I do. I love
right. Yeah.
that creating stories. I love like doing comics because again, I get inspired. I'm like, you know what? Maybe that's gonna be me someday.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah, maybe, yeah, maybe,
someday. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. We just got to keep. I think that's what keeps me creating, and I think that's why I've got so many titles out there because my mind is. I'm not saying, oh, I'm such a creative person because anybody could be creative, right, in their own way, in their own degree, and everyone's creative.
Yeah.
There are some people that are more creative than others. People have better imaginations than others, and I don't mean just like the imagination to create and to make something that people will like, or people may not like, but maybe you like it. I mean, it just everyone's got that creativity. It's just how creative are you, and my inspiration comes from, you inspire me, Bill, all my buddies that that I'm surrounded with. My girl inspires me. She's always the one that's like, hey, don't, you can't stop. You got to keep going because you're already too far into this. But you just I'm not trying to sound corny, but you just got to keep going until you can't anymore. Basically, that's just the way.
Yeah. I'm the same way because people like you, Daniel, people like my other comic book friends, even my friends, my family in particular, they're always in my corner. They're willing to support me, with any decision that I make. And they do, inspire me every single day.
Yeah.
I'm probably working on a garden thing with my father, my mother right now. At a neighborhood circle. They inspire me every single day. I mean,
Good.
they work hard. And my father's retired, and he's working hard. He's putting a lot of hours doing this gardening, and he still inspires me to this day. To
Yeah,
this day.
that's
So I
great.
was saying that with my mother. They inspire me to this day. So that's just like don't give up. So I'm not gonna give up. You're not gonna give up because this is what we love to do.
Yeah,
This is what we love to do, folks.
it's true.
We
It's
love to
true.
entertain you.
If you're listening to this, podcast right now, it's because you love comics.
Yeah,
You love Ian's show. So if you're listening to this right now, it's because you love it, and I would rather keep going than regret having stopped at
yeah,
later on when I'm a lot older and I look back and take it from a 53-year-old guy that's got two daughters that have moved out and that have finished college and are and doing things on their own now, that like time goes by really quick. And
it
if you're
does.
not doing love, man, by the time you look, you turn around and you can't move, or you can't think, or you can't, and you're sitting there going, damn, there's so many things I could have done that I didn't do because I was afraid or I didn't want to take the chance. I know it sounds corny. I know you hear it and you read it in books, but man, it's just so true. We were just planning our next vacation because we work really hard all year round and we want to enjoy ourselves. And I'm like, oh, this trip we're planning is kind of expensive. And then we're like, okay, but let's plan it so it's not so expensive, but so that we're still experiencing things, until we can't, because
Yeah,
that's what it's about, man. It's just about experiencing new things and doing it and doing stuff that you like to do. And comics is one of them for me.
yeah, absolutely. So, folks, I think the takeaway from tonight's episode is this: even if you're into comics and you don't get that passion for it, that's great. Keep feeding the passion. But if you just have other hobbies that you just love to do them. Do them. Whether it's I don't know, skydiving or parasailing, stuff like that. Just do them because again, life is short. It's so short.
It
All right,
is, man.
enough of that.
It is.
Yeah.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate that, Ian. Appreciate the I always get fired up whenever I'm on your show.
I
I
hope
always
I
walk away.
inspired you again.
Yeah, I always walk away going, all right, that was good. All right.
All right. As always, folks, I like to plug in my own stuff. This is Conan Punter. The sci-fi spy thriller was actually Star Trek inspired as well,
Very
as well as
cool.
James Bond and Star Wars, because I hope for a very positive future, in a galaxy, and in the future, just a positive future. We got issue one, things are happening, yeah, pretty much action packed in the first issue. We got issues 2 and 3. I have, said many times, issue 4 is being inked right now as we speak. I'm very excited about that. And we're
Congratulations.
going to, yeah, thank you. We're going to let you know about the Kickstarter, which is going to come up sometime in July. I just have to figure out when exactly, because I have a lot of paperwork to read on the Kickstarter stuff. So hopefully I would, contact people like Daniel to help me out, saying, well, what do I do here? Because again, he knows.
Can you send me that ad? Is there a way you can send me that ad? I'd like to help you with some Facebook ads if I can. I would love to be able to donate to that.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Send it to me and I'll boost the post and get you out on Facebook so people see it.
Thanks, man. Much appreciated.
Yeah, bro, you kidding me? It's the least I can do.
Well, folks, thank you for watching. I think that's going to be it for tonight. Daniel, I can't thank you enough for coming on
Same
again.
Here, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and once again, you've actually re-inspired me to go back to work on my comics right now. So I have to thank you for that.
Good. Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you.
All right. Well, folks, I'm Ian Miller, and this has been Triple Threat Comics YouTube channel. And before we go, I just want to say I will fix the camera situation. I don't know what happened, but I will fix it for the next time. So have a great night, folks.